So we are looking at hypertension first, more commonly referred to as high blood pressure, right? This is a condition where, when we're talking about high blood pressure, we're talking about a chronic elevated blood pressure. Like, don't forget, like, you should definitely be able to experience high blood pressure, right? If Danny is, listening to this Zoom call right now and, he's there doing like a bunch of goblet squats, like working out, like, blood pressure is going to go up, because your body needs to be able to control where blood is going. That's how your body moves blood around, right? Like, we need to be able to metabolize in different areas of the body. We need to be able to deliver oxygen to different areas of the body. So what I'm going to do, if I need to send blood down to my legs, I'm going to constrict the blood vessels in my upper body. And I'm going to dilate the blood vessels in my legs, which means I'm going to have lower pressure in the legs and I'm going to have higher pressure in the upper body. And that high pressure is going to cause blood to naturally move because for those of you who have been through some of my other classes, you guys know that I always love to say, nature hates a gradient. Nature cannot stand it when there is a lot of stuff over here and very little stuff over here. So if there's a lot of pressure over here and very little pressure over here, stuff is naturally going to move to areas of low pressure. We call that a pressure gradient. This is what happens when you're flying on an airplane. You depressurize, right? So we definitely know that high blood pressure can be fine in the right situations, but that's why we call hypertension, a condition, like a disease, right? Is because like it is chronic high blood pressure. This is high blood pressure when you're not supposed to have high blood pressure, which means that, you're going to have high blood pressure consistently in other parts of your life. And that's going to cause pressure problems, So if you guys have ever been like sitting on the couch, maybe watching TV or something, maybe you haven't eaten in a little while because, I don't know, you're busy, you forgot, I don't know, something happened. And then all of a sudden, like, you have that moment where you're like, okay, I gotta get up. And you stand up really quickly, and then all of a sudden, like, the world sort of disappears. You're like, ugh, that is a sudden and very dramatic feeling drop of blood pressure. So, all your blood pressure was actually really low in that moment because you weren't really doing any physical activity. So then by popping up really quickly, your body was like, crap, and like all of a sudden your blood didn't get any your brain didn't get any blood, excuse me. And when that happens, when your brain doesn't get any blood, it panics. So what it'll do is it'll cause you to black out. And that's why we tend to faint when we experience like blood pressure issues, because like it's a lot easier for blood to travel this way than it is to travel this way, which is sort of a protective mechanism. If your brain, which is the number one thing that needs oxygen in your entire body, needs that oxygen really badly, it's going to be like, all right, well, I'm not getting it, so lay down, and then, right. This is why locking your knees can cause that to happen. We're going to look at that actually as an example here in a little bit. But so there's definitely things that can cause chronic hypertension, this elevated blood pressure where our blood pressure is 140/90 even at rest, right? Like your blood pressure should go way over 140/90 when you're exercising, I'm sure like your blood pressure spikes through the roof when you're doing things like deadlifts and barbell squats or even a bench press, anything where you're creating like that abdominal vacuum and abdominally bracing and stuff, that raises your blood pressure. Even holding like a static stretch, just stretching out and like holding that like consistently can actually elevate your blood pressure. So like, yeah, absolutely. But what we're worried about is when it's at rest, right? That shows us that it's going to be much higher in even other layers. So we're going to consider this normal blood pressure to be around 120/80. And then hypertension is going to be at 140/90. And then there is pre-hypertension, which is like 130/85. Honestly, though, pre-hypertension is not like a definition you need to know. Like either it's a problem or it's not, the in-between stuff is like, meh. So, and when I'm talking about pressure, we got to remember that we're talking about the two phases of a heartbeat, right? So you've got the contraction of your heart and you've got the relaxation of your heart. The contraction of your heart, we call that systole. That's why that's called your systolic blood pressure. And then we've got diastole, which is the relaxation of the heart. That's your diastolic blood pressure. So when your heart squeezes, the pressure is going to be really high because your heart is squeezing, it's contracting. And so that systolic blood pressure is the first number. That's why that number is higher, because obviously there's going to be more pressure during the active contraction. But it's the amount of pressure on the walls during a heart's contraction. And then diastole, and that's when blood is being ejected from the heart, right? And then diastole is the pressure during the relaxation. It's the diastolic blood pressure. When your heart relaxes, obviously that allows, now there's more empty space in the heart. Empty space results in lower pressure. And that's what's going to draw blood back to your heart, ideally, right? So there's definitely some factors that are going to lead to hypertension. We know that diets that are particularly high in saturated fat are linked to hypertension. So saturated fat, most commonly referred to as like a bad fat, is often a very high cholesterol type of fat. Because you have to remember that most saturated fat is made by like animals, right? Don't get me wrong, there's definitely saturated fat in, nuts and seeds and, trace amounts in like plant matter and stuff. But the way that fat works in our body, right? We store fat in our tissues because it's a really great source of energy later down the line. If I end up in a situation where I don't get enough food, I can tap into my fat stores for energy, right? That's great. If we can't do that, or if we're going to do that, we need to be able to carry fat molecules around and transport them throughout the body so that that energy can get used properly. Well, that's where cholesterol comes in. Cholesterol is a transporter, or maybe it's a precursor to a hormone sometimes, right? So there's a lot of uses for cholesterol inside an animal's body, right? Our body, cow's body, whatever. So we need cholesterol, which is why we see cholesterol stored in meats and stuff. If you look at if you look at a steak, right? Whoops, I'm looking at maps. It's not what I meant to do. I'm not looking for a steakhouse. But if you look at it, right, you're going to see there's a lot of saturated fat around the edges and, places like this. Now, some of this is gristle, which is not necessarily fat. That's going to be like connective tissue. It's a tendon or something, but that marbling, right? That's very much like fat. And that's because this muscle might need some long-term energy. And so there's going to be a lot of cholesterols in there in order to transport that stuff around. And so we've got two types of cholesterol that we're going to see when we're talking about this idea of bad fat. It's because it has a lot of what we call low density lipoproteins, or LDL cholesterol, right? So low density lipoproteins are basically lipoproteins that, are mostly lipids and not very much protein. Let me see if I can find versus high density lipoproteins. They always show this good picture here, and then they just draw a simple one, but I want to really there we go. This is what we're looking for. Actually, you know what? There's an even better picture. That one's a little clearer. So you can see there is sort of a difference in how these are shaped and how they look, right? You can see there's a lot more lipid in the LDL, right? All these little red, orange triglyceride things, right? And then over here, this is mostly protein, right? There's just a lot of protein on there. So LDL cholesterol is the stuff that's going to block up your blood vessels, and that's going to raise blood pressure, right? This is going to be associated with our second disease we're talking about today, coronary heart disease, right? Hypertension can be the buildup of this cholesterol on really any of your blood vessels that's causing that increase in pressure, but it can also be particularly dangerous if it happens in the blood vessels of the actual heart. So like I said, saturated fat is probably, we consider it a bad fat, particularly when it comes from animal sources, because it can be very high in low density cholesterol, because that animal's body was using low density cholesterol to move those triglycerides around. And then also, it can clog very, very much our arteries. Now, I will say, if you are getting plenty of like good fats in your diet, lots of omega-3s, some omega-6s, and you are getting like a high fiber diet, if you're getting all of those things in your diet as well, while still getting plenty of saturated fat, as long as the ratio of saturated fat is good compared with like all of the good fat, they actually really can kind of like balance each other out. Because here's the thing, like saturated fat's not necessarily bad for us. It's bad for us in excessive amounts. And there's a difference between those two things, right? Smoking is, we're going to talk about that in a second. That's irredeemable. There's no benefits to smoking. But like even saturated fat is a good source of energy. There are some positive benefits, like LDL cholesterol is still very important. It does good things in the body as well. It's just too much of it is a bad thing, right? So I will say, like, for those of you who, I might have some keto people out there, for instance, keto is a diet that's generally just high in fat across the board. And so, yes, lots of saturated, but also lots of unsaturated. And those things can balance each other out. You may have high amounts of cholesterol in your body, but if you have plenty of like high density cholesterol that's balancing out and making sure that that low density cholesterol never gets clogged in the arteries, it's actually okay. I always like to think of it as like, it's a problem when you go to turn your faucet on and it's like clogged, sometimes like minerals build up on that little grate thing, the little screen that's on the end of a faucet or whatever. If I turn that to full blast and it can't like put the water out because there's just like minerals and stuff blocking it, that's not great, right? That's poor function. And that's going to cause stress all the way up the pipe, because I opened up the pipe, but it's trying, but there's just a lot of pressure now, right? That's bad. But like, if the faucet is like clear and I turn the thing on full blast, yes, there's a lot of flow and there's a lot of pressure coming through, but it's not pressure that's causing any problems, right? So it's when there's a buildup of stuff is what we're really worried about. Now, other factors that can lead to hypertension, smoking is a really big one. The chemicals associated with smoking do get into your bloodstream, and because they are simple, like, they're just like chemicals that your body doesn't know what to do with. This is why smoking is basically irredeemable. Yes, we know like smoking is absolutely linked to cancer, but it's all types of smoking, by the way. Like it's taking particles of stuff and putting it into your body, right? Like campfires are not good for you. They keep us alive when we're freezing, like really glad cave people invented campfires, like, but like inhaling like particles of stuff is always going to be a bad idea, no matter what it is. Now, there could be peripheral other benefits depending on like what it is you are smoking, certain materials, like need to be introduced through the lungs because that's a really quick way to introduce it to the bloodstream, asthma is a really good example of that. But when you put chemicals into your bloodstream, those chemicals, certain, but not chemicals in general, but specifically like chemicals that your body cannot utilize, they have to go somewhere, right? There's not like, it looks like a smoker, like it looks like when you bring a cigarette, like you have a cigarette, right? And you bring all that smoke into your lungs, it looks like you get rid of it. Like it all comes exhaling out, right? That's what it looks like. But the reality is so much of it stays in there. But these are very tiny particles. So it takes years and years and years for us to see the negative harmful effects. And yes, that is true of vaping as well. But what will happen is it gets into your bloodstream and your body's like, I don't know what to do with this, right? So it just kind of stores these chemicals, usually in fat cells. But some of it also gets stuck in your blood vessels. And that's what hardens our arteries, right? It's eventually I like to think of it as like you know, you're when you live in an apartment. I saw like a TikTok. I was at a Vine. I saw like a TikTok or an Instagram video or something like that the other day that was just showing, like, because I have like a lot of handyman stuff on my feed, because I like to do like projects and stuff. And it was like the difference between like a professional painter and like a landlord. It's like a professional painter like removes all the stuff and tapes everything off. And then like, we all have lived in those apartments, and where it's like the landlord just rolled directly over the light switch. Like, and there's just like layer upon layer upon layer of just like paint, and like it chips and stuff. um that is very much like what's happening inside of your arteries, right? These chemicals are just kind of slowly building up and hardening, because your body doesn't know what to do with them, right? And so that causes like stiffness in these things that should be able to dilate and constrict, but now that they're harder, that's why smoking is a super high contributing factor to hypertension. Excessive body weight is another one. We know that if you are bringing in an excess number of calories, those calories are going to get converted into triglycerides and stored in fat cells, and then those fat cells are going to use LDL cholesterol to move those things around. And so again, LDL cholesterol starts to build up. So it kind of goes right back to that diet that's high in saturated fat. Even if your diet is not high in saturated fat, your body is making saturated fat because it has to saturate your fat cells with triglycerides. And then stress is an interesting one. Stress leads to hypertension. Again, remember, your blood vessels dilate and constrict in response to where blood needs to go. And when your body thinks that it's stressed, well, it's going to send blood to the areas that are going to be able to fight off and combat that particular type of stress. So if you are consistently under stress, you are consistently contracting, right? Imagine if you just spend all day, like, for the rest of the day, here's a fun experiment, everybody in this call. Go like this for the rest of the day and don't let go. Don't actually do this. But imagine like what would happen 8 hours from now when you try to put your shoulders down. Like it's gonna feel terrible, right? Well, now imagine your blood vessels are constricting in one area and dilating in another, right? And they just get used to doing that. That's going to cause areas of high pressure and low pressure. Those muscles that are those tunics that are constricting and dilating are going to get bad at either dilating or constricting. They're going to get bad at doing the opposite of what they've been doing all day. This is why people who are, I'm sure we all, it could be, I could have somebody in this call right now actually that feels this way. But we all know that person who tends to be very like stressed. For me, it's my mom. My mom is an Olympic level stressor. She's better at stressing out than anybody I know. And it can cause like problems. It can cause gastrointestinal problems. Like she'll get so anxious sometimes, she'll get like a stomach ache. You get that knot in your stomach. Yeah, that is oftentimes because like, you are constricting blood vessels so much, you're shutting down blood. You get food in your system, right? And now suddenly that food can't move because like, your entire digestive system slows down and is not functioning anymore. So blood pressure problems absolutely come from stress in particular. So all of those are going to be factors that can lead to hypertension. So, let's say you've got a diet that's high in saturated fat. So now there's little like low density cholesterols building up in your blood vessels. You tend to be a smoker, and so now there's chemicals that are hardening those tubes. Maybe there's an excessive amount of body weight, which is causing even more cholesterols to leak into the bloodstream. And we happen to live like a very stressful lifestyle, which is causing like certain blood vessels to remain open all day and other ones to remain constricted all day. Well, guess what? That is going to cause hypertension. We are going to have some serious areas of high pressure and some serious areas of low pressure. And these are squishy tubes, right? And what happens when you run a lot of pressure through like little tubes? Well, it can lead to chronic heart failure. If this happens in our coronary arteries, which are, the arteries that are meant to give, your heart is this pump that literally pumps blood to all of the systems throughout your entire body. But it is still tissue at the end of the day. You know, a lot of people think, I think that like we have this kind of idea that like blood goes into the heart, and so we just get blood, you know, it just kind of naturally absorbs it from the chambers. It actually can't do that. There are walls on the inside of the chambers that are very smooth so that blood doesn't get stuck in there. But that prevents blood from naturally delivering oxygen through the chambers. So what does it do? Well, blood's normally, it's going to pump out from this ventricle right here, left ventricle, and it's going to go up this tube, and then it'll loop around and go out to the rest of the body, or some of it'll go up to the brain here. But you'll notice the first tubes that branch off from here, these are arteries right here. These are your coronary arteries. The very first thing that your heart does is supply itself with blood. Just like when you're on a plane, you know, and it's like, please secure your own mask before helping somebody else. Your heart has to keep itself alive before it can help anyone else. So the very first place that blood delivers oxygen is the heart itself as it gets pumped out this tube here. So, you know, yeah, that's a really big situation there. So some of the chronic heart failure, if you block up those tubes and now the pump can't get any blood, the pump's going to die, you know, and that's coronary heart disease. We're going to see that next. So the heart cannot receive enough oxygen due to limited blood flow and therefore cannot function properly. We also see stroke associated with heart hypertension. You know, let's say this happens. Let's say this happens in the arteries going up to the brain, right? So you've got two major arteries traveling up to either side of the brain. If you block that with plaque and now blood can't get to the brain, well, your brain is also a tissue. That's a great picture. There we go. Your brain is also a tissue that needs massive amounts of oxygen, you know? And so if those neurons that are in the brain, the billions of them, don't get any oxygen delivery, well, they suffocate, right? And so that is a stroke. Stroke and a heart attack, literally exactly the same thing. Just one's happening in the brain, the other one's happening in the heart. And then this can also lead to kidney failure, which is kind of a weird one. But if you look at your kidneys, your kidneys, there we go, kind of look like this on the inside, which is kind of surprising. But there's a lot of little like coiled up blood vessels in there. And that's because they are in charge of like filtering your body's blood, right? So like they're kind of like a Brita filter, you know. Actually, that's also a very good picture. You know, stuff goes in and it kind of gets filtered around, right? And then like, you know, any of the materials that need to head down to your bladder, your waste products, right, are going to travel down to here. And then your bladder is going to combine that with some water. And that's how we end up with our urine and stuff. But all this like pressure going through here, right? If there's just a high amount of pressure going to one area, maybe not so much going to the other, guess what? That can cause cellular damage, just like it does in the heart, just like it does in the brain. So kidney problems are also highly associated with hypertension. And if you have a problem with your kidneys and you can't filter materials and you can't do that, that can lead to all kinds of problems as well. So definitely not a fan of hypertension, right? Definitely something we are trying our hardest to avoid. But guess what? Exercise is super good for hypertension. It has incredible benefits to it. Endurance training in particular can result in an average reduction of even 5 to 7 units of decreased pressure there in clients who have hypertension. So what is happening is basically you're exercising, which is doing little repetitions for, yes, your muscles, but also your blood vessels. And so we can get that flexibility and strength back in our little blood vessels here. And so we see an increased vasodilation response. That can increase your kidney function. Obviously, it can decrease stress hormones, because here's the weird thing about exercise is like it's a targeted type of stress. Like we talk about how bad stress is all the time, but we don't talk about how good stress is enough. Like stress is a very good part of normal living, right? Like we are a biologic creature designed to deal with stress, you know? And so this is very much like something that we want to experience, right? We like stress in some capacities, right? We just don't like excessive stress. When we get stressed, our body, you know, this is why, like picture like a kid, right? Picture like an infant, like a baby, right? What does every parent love to do to a baby? They love to just like do that, toss them up and like catch them. And you look at the baby's face, like, ah, and they're like, at first, like, oh my God, oh wait, no, this is kind of fun, right? It's that like, we love, you know, we love going to horror movies, right? Like, maybe not everybody, but like we like roller coasters. We like a little bit of stress. We like the thrill, you know, and it causes like, you know, and you get all the anti-stress that comes washing over you afterwards, the dopamine, the adrenaline, all of these like, you know, really fun hormones that kind of come along afterwards. So exercise is stress, but then it results in this great anti-stress afterwards. It's why we all feel better when we get to exercise, you know. I was a little grumpy yesterday. And I went and played Ultimate, lost all 3 games, but I had a great time and I felt really good afterwards. I was like, whoo, because I was trying really, you know, and this is going to sound so weird. I almost feel better after I mostly like lose my games, because when I'm losing, I play harder, you know, because I'm trying to eke out a win. And yesterday I was working my butt off trying to just like force a win because we were definitely not the better team. You know, tried my hardest. Wasn't able to pull it off, but I felt better afterwards. I left, I was like, ah, that was satisfying. You know, I know I gave it my all. By the way, I lost the freaking final, you know, I got beat on the final game winner. I like went up for a block and this guy just with an iron grip. I tried to knock it out of his hand and just couldn't. But it was a great play. You know, it was a really great play. And I know that I left it all on the field. So I felt really good afterwards. And today my glutes are really sore. You know, it's like all the fun anti-stress that kind of comes along with the stress of working out, the stress of exercise. So we do know that like we have a really positive impact on hypertension when we exercise regularly, and that decreases our stress hormones in response to, you know, sort of increasing our stress hormones in a weird way. But then it also increases our insulin sensitivity. Remember, like when you exercise regularly, right, you're, you know, burning up energy from your glycogen stores, and then those glycogen stores need to be refilled. And so your body's going to go, oh, I guess I should use my insulin to put this sugar back in the glycogen. So our special considerations, like how do we take advantage of these physiologic responses when it comes to exercising? Well, again, you're going to see kind of the same thing that we saw with our obese clients. We want to perform most of our exercises in a seated or at least a standing position. However, the reason is different. We were doing this with obese clients because we knew it burned more calories, and our emphasis is just, you know, on calories. Do I care about building strength with an obese client? Sure. You know, I'm just prioritizing a caloric burn first. I'm picking the things that burn the most energy. Well, with a client who has hypertension, I am performing exercises in a seated or at least a standing position. So those are actually going to be our big priorities here, right? Because if I bring my client's head down, it can actually cause pressure problems. If I have somebody who has a really hard time dilating specific blood vessels and constricting specific blood vessels, and all of a sudden I move their head really rapidly, they can black out. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to avoid prone and supine positions. I'm going to avoid laying my client face down. I'm going to avoid laying them face up because that can increase the pressure, right? And I don't want to do that. So I'm basically going to focus on keeping my client's head directly upright for most of the session. This is very similar to working with a population that's not in your books. But if you have a client who has vertigo, If you don't know what vertigo is, it's oftentimes where somebody will get like an inner ear infection, or they'll get hit in the head, and it will mess with these little stones that live in your ear that are responsible for your balance, right? If we look at it, it's called your vestibular system. And it's this really weird series of tubes, by the way, that live inside your ear. Like this is what your ear actually looks like on the inside. And part of that are these little floating stones. These little like rocks. And those rocks are actually acting like kind of like a level, you know, like the little bubble when you're using a level. Their job is to help your body understand what is up and what is down, like what direction gravity is pulling, basically. And what'll happen is if you get an ear infection, that can move the fluid in your ear and it can push the stones to a different part of the ear, and they can get dislodged, or you can get hit in the head, you can fall, something can happen, and it can start to cause a vertigo where all of a sudden you'll see it, like somebody who has vertigo. I can't remember what it's called. If anybody knows this term, but it's where your eyes will wiggle like crazy. And it's somebody who has vertigo's brain basically trying to figure out what is up and what is down. It's really kind of interesting looking. But what they'll do sometimes is they'll go through this very specific maneuver where they bring the clients, like, you know, a physical therapist would like move somebody's head around and give the stones time. And it's like they're trying to get it back into alignment. And it can sometimes make those symptoms go away. So with a client who has vertigo, you got to be really careful. You really cannot move their head too quickly. Wood chops are a really high risk exercise, because what will happen is all of a sudden their brain will lose the orientation with what direction is, and they'll get super dizzy. They might get nauseous, they might pass out. But either way, they're going to feel like crap. You super don't want to do that with somebody who has vertigo. I train my clients who have had vertigo, and I've only dealt with vertigo like 3 or 4 times ever. It's somewhat rare, or at least it's rare for people who exercise. I treat them exactly the same way as I treat my hypertensive clients. I just try to keep them upright. I had a client say this one time, and I was like, what an incredible metaphor. But they were like, they had vertigo, and they were like, basically, it's like I'm Batman. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, do you remember the old like 1988 Batman or 1989 Batman, whatever year, with Michael Keaton? You know, the old Batmans back in the day, the mask and the cowl, it was all like one piece. So Batman would always move like this. Like he would just be like, you know, like he couldn't turn his head. He had to like look at people this way and like look at people that way. And it was like, yeah, I just need to keep my head in one orientation. And I was like, all right, you're Batman, you know. So we're trying to keep our clients like head in a relatively stable orientation. Crunches, not a great exercise for a client who has hypertension. So we are going to avoid those because it can change, it can result in areas of high and low pressure. We will see, now here's the thing, NASM is going to say that static and active isolated stretching is allowed. I did put a little note in here because something that I've read multiple times, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that static stretching may also want to be avoided. The isometric nature of static stretches can actually raise blood pressure. And you will see that down here under special considerations, we actually want to avoid isometric exercises, because isometric exercises cause blood to pool in one area. And again, that's going to be a pressure problem. We also want to avoid over gripping exercises. Like I like a good deadlift with my clients who have hypertension, but if they do have like hypertension, I will always make them use deadlifting straps, those straps that they can use around their grip. And that way they don't have to over grip. And I'll use the same things on like pull-ups. So I will actually encourage my clients who have hypertension to buy these straps. They're like $10, you know, and use these when they're doing like gripping exercises. And that way they don't grip like this, which causes blood to pool. I mean, you can even see if I just like squeeze like crazy, right? All the blood kind of leaves my hand until it kind of comes back, right? That is something we're trying to avoid with hypertensive clients. So over gripping, isometrics. Me personally, I actually don't do static stretches with my hypertension clients. It's not listed here, but I definitely don't do it. SMR is not recommended. It is not recommended that you do foam rolling with a client who has hypertension. You want to avoid that pressing because, again, pressure problems. Cardiorespiratory training is absolutely recommended. We love cardiorespiratory training. However, we are going to focus on stage 1 cardiorespiratory training. Interval training is really not super suggested because interval training often involves like doing like sprints and like really high intensity stuff. And when that happens, blood just shunts to the legs, which we don't really want. So a nice gentle form of cardio is much more recommended. Steady state, long duration cardio. When it comes down to NASM's OPT model, we are going to focus on phases 1 and 2. Those are our high repetition ranges, so relatively low intensity. Again, going for that endurance style training. And then we really like circuit training with our hypertensive clients, but in particular, we like a very special type of circuit. So, we lost somebody. So I'm gonna go back to yesterday, right? I'm gonna try to remember what that circuit was we built yesterday. It started with like, what was it? It was planks, and then it was like a dumbbell, or no, it was like a kettlebell swing into inverted rows, I think, and then it was like goblet squats. I remember that one. Into a dumbbell chest press. So I think that's the circuit from yesterday, if I remember right. Here's what's kind of funny about this circuit. It was like 3 sets of 12, right? 12. And we did it as a circuit, so it was like 0 and then like 60 seconds of rest at the end, right? So this is kind of the circuit we had yesterday. Here's what's really cool about this circuit. This is actually a very good example of a peripheral heart action circuit, which is a special type of circuit. So I go from doing a plank into a kettlebell swing, into an inverted row, into a goblet squat, into a dumbbell chest press. This is a core exercise. This is lower body. This is upper body. This is lower body. This is upper body. That is, whoops, I did not line this up properly. That is one of the best ways to do circuit training when we are training a hypertensive client. So if I just look up like a regular old circuit training routine, you know, it might be something, let's see here, burn fat faster than ever. All right, Men's Health, what do you got? Squats, mountain climbers, dumbbell swing, T push-ups, split jumps, rows. So this is pretty good in terms of like going up and down and up and down and up and down. But it is like, it's like legs into mountain climbers. I guess that's kind of a core one, into like another leg, into arms, into legs, into arms, into legs, arms, legs. Yeah, that's pretty decent. There's a little bit of, you know, lots of leg after leg there in the beginning. So when you're organizing a circuit, if you go from like upper body to lower body or lower body to upper body, just like consistently like shoulders, chest, back, then legs, that can be a regular circuit, and that's fine. But with hypertensive clients in particular, we really kind of want to go upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. We want to go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, because that's going to evenly distribute blood throughout the body. You are going to be doing little reps for your blood vessels. When you do a lower body exercise, the blood vessels open up. And then all of a sudden you do an upper body exercise and your blood vessels in the legs have to go, ah, crap, and they have to close down, right? And they're going to open back up again. This is great for hypertensive clients. So a really good example would maybe be, let's see, let's delete this here. Because again, we also want to keep our client like upright. So a cable chest press into a goblet squat, into a standing cable row, into walking lunges, into a single leg shoulder press, into calf raises, right? That is a terrific example of a good hypertensive program, right? So if we did 3 sets of that, let's say, 12 to 15 reps. I know that's a high number of reps. It's maybe not the best for strength, but again, our goal is to get a little endurance here. I might even go 15 to 20. Tempo, we'll go with like a slow tempo for all of these, because I do want the time under tension to be high. And then 0 seconds of rest after each exercise, 60 seconds of rest at the end. So now I've got kind of a pretty good resistance style workout here, right? That's very good for total body. If I do this 3 days a week with a client who has hypertension, they're probably going to be in a pretty good spot by the end. And now when I say slow, actually I shouldn't say slow tempo because that indicates isometric. So I got to be a little bit more specific. I kind of goofed up. I shouldn't just write slow. In your textbook, slow is 4, 2, 1, which means there's a 2-second isometric pause. Don't do that. No isometric pauses. So I might do like 4, 1, 1, or 2, 0, 2, or 1, 1, 1. So I can go slow on the eccentric. So a 4, 1, 1 tempo would look like this, right? That would be a 1 second press, a 1 second hold, and then 4 seconds on the way back. So really just like no pauses, right? Or if it was a row, it would be like a pull and then slow on the way back, pull, slow on the way back, right? That's how we want to sort of take that approach, right? And then if they can't do a standing cable row, just do a kneeling cable row. But that's going to put us in a really good spot, right? That's going to be how we want to approach a peripheral heart action circuit. If I got a client with blood pressure problems, this is great. By the way, I think peripheral heart action is good for anybody. I think it's just beneficial for every client. I will say it's a little tougher. Sometimes not everybody's going to be able to handle that. It'll make you feel a lot more out of breath because your blood's like, where am I going? So other recommendations, avoid isometric tempos. These are the ones we want. You can see the isometric, which is the middle number always, right, guys? Is 1 second or 0 seconds, either no pause or just very little pause. We do want to avoid heavy lifting because heavy lifting is associated with over gripping. And then sometimes, a lot of times people need to do like a big pause when they're lifting very heavy because they need to be cautious, right? So if that's the case, I'm going to keep the repetitions pretty darn high for a hypertensive client. So our mode, we like large muscle groups. We like aerobic activities. The treadmill is very good. Rowing can be fun. I personally do not like rowing for hypertensive clients because it's just a lot of head movement. I guess they're kind of upright the whole time. I don't know. I can't think of a time I've ever done that with a client with hypertension. To me, a rowing machine seems unrecommended, but it's on here, and NASM knows more than I do. So frequency, preferably every day. Now obviously they shouldn't be doing strength training every day because that could be a little bit, it's not really building any time for recovery. But if they can do some type of physical activity every day, that is definitely recommended. Now you might be thinking, isn't that too much exercise? Honestly, yeah, they might end up with an overuse injury, but that is better than a heart attack. Intensity, 40 to 60% less of your VO2. Again, that's low intensity. With this high frequency, we need to be pretty low on the intensity. And that's going to be a big thing, right? We are trying to avoid overuse injuries. Duration, probably probably greater than 30 minutes of continuous accumulated physical activity. We do need the duration here in order to see the benefits. We need those blood vessels to work. You got to remember, like your type 1 muscle is your endurance type fibers. Blood vessels are about as type 1 as it gets. That is some low intensity, high duration stuff. Assessments, we can do all of them, push, pull, overhead squat, single leg, they're all fine. Flexibility, Like I said, static and active stretches. However, you probably want to do them in a standing or seated position. So if you're choosing the difference between like a 90-90 hamstring stretch, which is not that, which is this one here, versus like a standing hamstring stretch, you're probably going to want to choose the standing version because that can keep your client relatively upright. Okay. Versus this where they might, get blood pressure problems going down to the floor or getting back up. In terms in terms of sets and reps, anywhere between 1 and 3 sets, 10 to 20 repetitions, 2 to 3 days per week, right? So we got that here. I mean, I wrote 12 to 15. I could have made that 12 to 20, that's kind of a fun one, actually, going for like 12 to 20, I will always aim for 12, pick a weight that's like relatively hard. And then I just tell my client, I'm like, look, I want you to get as many reps as you can. And so they get like 12, 13 the next time, 16 the next time, 18, until eventually they get 3 sets of 20. And then I'm like, great, time to go up on the weight. And we make it harder. And then special considerations, like I said, avoid heavy lifting, heavy lifting. Don't let your client over grip on the weight, and then modify your tempo if you need to. Just make sure you're paying close attention to not letting your client like isometrically let blood pool in one particular area. All right, that's hypertension. Any questions on that? Any questions on the peripheral heart stuff, like how to do the circuit and how to set that up properly? Exercise choice, anything like that? Questions?
I think you're fine.
I'm good to go.
Cool. Love it. All right. Well, let's look at the thing that is most associated with hypertension, coronary artery disease or coronary heart disease. We've already kind of talked a bit about it, but this is going to be clients who have, chances are, had some type of heart attack, or maybe are at a risk of a heart attack. They're coming back from a heart attack, right? And so coronary heart disease is disease of your coronary arteries. So your coronary arteries are in charge of supplying your heart itself with blood. And so again, if we are limiting blood flow to the heart, well, the heart is the pump that sends blood everywhere. So if the pump is compromised, your entire blood flow is compromised, and every cell in your body is at risk, right? That's why heart attacks are so dangerous. So a lot of times clients might be experiencing what is called angina, which is just a big fancy name for chest pain. And we do know that this is highly associated with other comorbidities. Diabetes can be a risk factor, too much sugar, meaning the blood can't function properly. Obesity is a risk factor, leaking out those triglycerides and building up plaque. Hypertension is a risk factor, blood pressure problems, and peripheral vascular disease like PAD, which is what we're going to see later today, is also a risk factor. That is blood pooling in the legs, actually. If your heart's not strong enough to pull blood back to the heart, that's not going to be great. So we definitely want to keep an eye on how our client's heart is functioning during the session. This is one of the reasons why you should always recommend, if your client is does have a risk of heart disease, that they are wearing a heart rate monitor during their workout. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of info about heart rate monitors, there are 2 categories. Both of them are okay. Me personally, I like the chest strap version, but there are 2 major types of heart rate monitors out there. So there is the Apple Watch / wrist approach, like what I'm wearing right here, which is, you'll notice, they pretty much always use like green. And the reason why is because like green is sort of on the opposite color spectrum of the color red, and your red blood cells are red. And basically the way that this technology works is it can kind of see through your skin, and every time your heart beats, blood goes rushing past the little sensor. And so it's basically counting the cars go by every time it sees your blood go rushing by. So it uses that to estimate your heart rate. It's not bad. Like that's pretty good, but it does get less accurate the higher your heart rate is. So these are pretty good when your heart rate's close to resting. But as your heart rate goes up, it kind of just all looks like one continuous flow to the sensor. So then those numbers get pretty inaccurate the higher your heart rate goes. If you really want a truly super accurate heart rate monitor, you want to use a chest strap version. This comes with this is like both a combination, right? If the chest strap is nearby, actually I need to, it'll switch to that. Freaking thing, hold on. Let me see if I can get this to, there it is. So you can see there's the green, right? That is that's the wrist version. That's what sort of works, all day long. But if you put on like a chest strap version, these are actually going to be shockingly accurate. And the way that they work a little bit differently. What they do is they basically, this little like machine here can actually sense when your heart creates its electric signal. So for instance, like your heart, the way it works, right? It contracts at, I think, -70 millivolts, which is a pretty specific frequency. And so anytime -70 millivolts is like created, this monitor is like sensing that nearby. And so every time your heart contracts, it's going to be picked up on by the sensor. So this is a highly, highly accurate version of a heart rate monitor, but I get it. They can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to wear. You got to charge them up, you got to wash them, which is, I'm sure no one in the world has ever done a good job yet. I know I try and don't do a very good job of washing mine, but but with a client who has a history of heart disease, it is really important to make sure that you are monitoring their heart, because their status may change super rapidly. Their heart could be keeping up one moment and then be crashing the next. And so we just need to be able to watch for that and screen for that. And so heart rate monitors make that process, excuse me, sorry guys, very easy. So you don't have to like continually check their pulse throughout the workout. So yeah, be aware their client could be feeling fine one moment, and then all of a sudden they could be struggling with chest pain or nausea, lightheadedness, dizziness. They can be dealing with all of that out of nowhere, because all of a sudden their heart is just not functioning anymore. It's kind of like you're lifting in the middle of a set, and then all of a sudden you just get tired. Sometimes the lactic acid just builds up. That's your heart. Your heart can't function properly all of a sudden, and they just need to like rest like crazy. They could feel really bad. So we need to be cautious of that. So generally, you're going to work out at pretty low intensities. We're going to start very simply and build this heart back up slowly and slowly over time, which also means you are going to need a much more extended, much longer warm up and cool down. We want to ease into exercise, and then it's important to trigger the fact that the stress is over. We're trying to tell our heart like, hey, we did it, we survived, we fought off the bear, which means we also need to ease out. We need to extend our warm up and our cool down. Both of those things should be a little bit longer, because remember, your cool down is not just about like, evenly distributing your blood around and sort of metabolizing things. It's also about telling your body, signaling to your body that the stress is over, that we survived the gauntlet, so that's important. It is really important with clients who are exercising. If we cannot use a heart rate monitor, we need to continually check in with them and see how they're feeling. So that RPE method is going to be very, very helpful, right? With our clients, just say like, hey, how are you feeling? Check in. And then again, isometric exercises should be avoided. We do not want blood to pool in one particular area. Most clients who have coronary heart disease are also dealing with hypertension in some capacity. So we like large muscle group activities. We like stationary cycling, walking, rowing. All of those are good examples. Frequency, we're going to go with at least 3 days per week. We could probably take it up to, just like hypertension, like 5-7 days per week. But bare minimum, we want somebody to start getting physically active at least 3 days a week. Intensity, we want somewhere between 40 and 85% of the heart rate reserve. So here's the thing that'll happen about like having a heart attack. When you have a heart attack, your heart will be less optimal. So we'll have to beat much quicker because it's not pumping as much blood every time. So it will actually beat faster. This is one of the reasons why it's very important to use the heart rate reserve method when calculating their target heart rate. So remember the Karvanen method, the Karvanen calculator is, that slightly more complicated formula. So it's your age. So if I'm 34, right, and then a resting heart rate of, let's say, I had a heart attack, so now my resting heart rate's like 82, right? I'm gonna hit calculate here, and I'm gonna look down. Here are my heart rate reserves. So I am only going to exercise somewhere between 40, which is lower than this calculator even showed us, and 85%. So maybe I start 50, work my way up to 55, 60, right? Steady state, gentle cardio. Talk test or RPE method are important to make sure you're checking in with your client here. Duration should be probably 5 or even 10 minutes of warming up. So throw them on the treadmill, get them nice and warm for a little while before they do anywhere from 20 minutes if they're a beginner, or maybe they're starting to get a little bit more advanced, to up to 40 minutes of exercise, followed by a 5 to 10 minute cool down. So if I had a client with coronary heart disease, I go back to that workout that I made earlier. I like the idea of peripheral heart action, but this is probably going to be a little bit too intense for a client who's actually coming back from a heart attack. So all I'm going to do is put 60 seconds of rest here, and I'm still going to perform it as a circuit. It's just now they're going to have a little bit of rest between each station, and that gives their heart time to come down. But then I'm still going to go upper to lower to upper to lower. Probably not quite as effective. And then as they get stronger, what I can do is I can just shift, the rest down, right? I can go from 60 seconds between each second exercise to maybe 45 seconds, between each exercise. And then as they get even better at it, we take it down to 30 seconds, right? Until eventually, yeah, they're doing it as a full on, zero rest circuit. Assessments, totally normal. Push, pull, overhead squat, single leg squat, it's like every time. Flexibility, static or active in a standing or seated position. There's no reason to avoid static stretches with coronary artery clients, except for the fact that most of them have had blood pressure problems. So then again, me personally, I wouldn't do it. I like active stretches. 1 to 3 sets, 10 to 20 repetitions, 3 days a week. That's pretty much the same. And then just be aware your client's probably going to have some other, nobody has a heart attack out of nowhere. It's probably that it has been associated with something else they've been dealing with for a long time. Obesity, diabetes. So modify your tempo, avoid the isometrics, and avoid really extended concentric contractions as well, right? Like if you're lifting really heavy and you're like shortening the muscle, right? Struggling to get it up. Don't do that with a client who's had heart problems. You can extend the eccentric. They can come down slow. That's okay. But they shouldn't be doing that. That just raises pressure off the roof. And that's something, again, we're trying to avoid. You guys know the drill. Questions, comments, concerns. How y'all feeling? All righty, radio silence. All right, let's look at our last one today. Intermittent claudication, or PAD, peripheral arterial disease. So when we're talking about PAD, this is going to be pain in the lower extremities associated with limited arterial blood flow. So PAD is going to be a very painful condition. Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. Peripheral artery disease is going to be where there is limited blood flow going down to the legs because the arteries have been built up with a bunch of plaque. So there is so much plaque building up that the legs are not getting blood flow. When your legs don't get blood flow, it hurts, blood starts to pool in one area. It can be very painful, right? And so this can lead to neurological problems like neuropathy. Obviously our neurons need plenty of oxygen in order to function. What the heck, man? I can't believe I'm yawning so much today. It's probably this one. I'm just like warm. So pain in the lower extremities. The lower legs are not receiving enough blood flow, right? This can definitely cause blood clotting in the legs, which is very dangerous. That's why it's called intermittent claudication. Those blood clots, when we start to see that, let's see if I can find a picture of what we're talking about here. So what initially starts happening is so pixelated. Initially, what will happen is you will get like plaque building up on an artery, and then it gets thicker and thicker. And then eventually, because it gets so chunky and textured, blood cells start to like get stuck, and then they start to clot. And so when you end up with a clot, that's going to limit blood flow to the area. And that means that's not going to metabolize properly. This is literally a foot that is not healing as quickly as it's supposed to because it's not receiving any metabolites. It's not getting any of those metabolic structures that are meant to like heal the body. So PAD clients, when it comes down to things for individuals with PAD, we know that smoking is very related to PAD. Smoking is probably one of the first things. If you have pain in your legs, blood clotting problems, get rid of those freaking cigarettes. That is highly associated with PAD. It's also associated with diabetes, right? Lots of sugar, again, gumming up the works in the blood vessels, right? We do know that resistance training can have a positive benefit. It can increase blood flow to the legs, which is nice. It improves the cellular properties, which is really, really, really great. Your body becomes much more efficient at utilizing oxygen because it goes, oh, I guess we're using oxygen. So it needs more enzymes. It creates all these metabolic properties that are awesome. We know that exercise can actually improve your walking economy. Your body basically gets better at walking, therefore it needs less oxygen to do this, simple activity. And it gets your body to rely more on your aerobic metabolism rather than your anaerobic metabolism. So it stops using sugar as often and starts using more oxygen, which is great because then it can sort of hold on to that energy from oxygen better, create more enzymes, kick out more energy instantly, which is awesome, right? So like I said, smoking, very dangerous for PAD. Now, there is sort of the cousin to PAD, which is like varicose veins. This is also a very painful condition, but varicose veins are actually a little bit different. This is happening obviously in a vein rather than an artery. So remember, your veins are much smaller than your arteries. They're a much smaller vessel. And because of that, they have these little valves in them. You can kind of see, right? There's the valves there. So what happens is like blood will work its way to the heart and then the valve will just kind of, passively close afterwards. That prevents blood from backflowing. But if you just don't have a very strong heart, eventually so much blood is going to start pooling. And then what that can do is that can stretch out those blood vessels and basically the valve can no longer shut. So blood just kind of falls back down and starts stretching out the blood vessels. And you can actually see that, where it actually starts to happen, right? You can see those varicose veins externally, right? So that is very similar to PAD, except that veins carry deoxygenated blood. The blood's already done its job. It just needs to get back to the heart, right? That's a varicose vein. PAD is like blood is supposed to get to the legs and can't. So imagine like, have you guys ever like, wrapped a rubber band around your finger and eventually it starts hurting, right? It's painful, right? The blood is, no blood's getting there and blood is also pooling. Both of those are very achy, painful situations. That's what having PAD is like, except it's your entire freaking leg. So oftentimes they are going to suffer in their aerobic capacity. And so we need to be aware of that and give our client adequate rest so they don't have to experience too much of that pain. So treadmill walking is probably preferred because walking is what we are trying to get our client back to being able to do. Stationary cycling, steppers, and elliptical trainers are also all fine, but particularly walking is probably the big emphasis with PAD. We're going to focus on 3 to 5 days per week until we can eventually get up to every day. Ideally, we want to get to a place where this stops being painful. We can strengthen the heart enough to suck that blood back to where it needs to get to, and also push that blood to where it needs to get to. We need to get the heart strong enough to do this, which means we need to exercise regularly. Start with 3 to 5 days per week. It's going to hurt and it's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. So start small and then build that up. With your intensity, this is a very interesting one, but chances are it's going to be very much based on the client. So what I do with my clients and what you should probably do is throw them on a treadmill, and you are going to monitor their heart rate very specifically, and you are going to establish their upper limit. Their upper limit is going to be much more based on what they can handle pain wise rather than what they can handle like heart rate, uncomfortable side stitch, exercise wise. The pain in their legs is going to be much more the determining factor. So what I do is I basically establish like the lower limit based on like, target heart rate and stuff. And then I establish the upper limit based on like where my client says, I can't do this anymore. And that will probably be the lower ranges, maybe just below zone 1 to the lower ranges of zone 1. So probably anywhere from 50 to 70% heart rate max. But it'll be different for everybody. So you just need to like write that number down. Duration, work your way up to 20 to 30 minutes. We've seen a lot of examples of where I've been saying, 10 minutes 3 times a day. With PAD clients, that is a very effective routine, but you want to encourage them to slowly build up their endurance. So maybe it starts with 5 minutes, then it goes to 10 minutes, then 15, and eventually we want to get to 20 to 30 minutes consistent without feeling any of that pain. For the posture assessments, yeah, all the same. Posture is not really a big deal here. Flexibility, we like static, we like active. Both of them are fine. And then you can see our resistance training. We're going to drop the reps pretty substantially here. We're going to see 1 to 3 sets, only 8 to 12 reps. That's not because they're a bodybuilder or trying to put on muscle or anything like that. It's just because that's probably as much time as they can handle being on their feet before like that, it kind of starts to hurt. And then 2 to 3 days per week. Special considerations, give your client sufficient rest between sets. For me, I always like to make sure if I've got a client with PAD, I'm carrying a chair with me the entire workout. I never want to be in a situation where my client can't take a minute to sit down and maybe even prop their feet up. That's the thing. If I got that chair, great. They can sit on the bench, put their feet up on the chair, or sit in the chair, put their feet on the bench, right? They can get their feet elevated. That can kind of drain some of that blood out, can make it feel a lot more comfortable. So sufficient rest between exercises and progressing slowly are definitely what you are going to see in clients with PAD. That ish hurts, or so I've been told. Any questions, guys? How y'all feeling about PAD? Does that disease make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, well, let's look at our client, Mike, here. So Mike is recovering from a heart attack 6 months ago. He does have hypertension, and sure enough, with his weak heart, he is experiencing PAD. He likes playing cards, he likes going to bingo. He likes walking to lunch with his friends, which is something he wants to get back to. And Mike is 70 years old. He's retired. He's generally sedentary. Currently he's on a beta blocker. That's a medication that we are aware of that can have the effect of lowering your heart rate and lowering your blood pressure. So we need to be aware of that if we're targeting his heart rate, because we don't want to push him too hard. So chances are we're not going to use target heart rate. We're much more going to use the Tug Test, or we're going to check in with him regularly and ask him how he's feeling. The RPE method, right? The rating of perceived exertion. His blood pressure, when we tested him, was 140/90, even on his medication. His resting heart rate's 85, which is pretty freaking high. And his body fat percentage, about 25%. That's not too high. It's outside of normal ranges, but it's 70 years old, probably not a huge priority. Now, we did have him do what is called the Tug Test. I'm going to teach you guys the Tug Test in about a week, but just so you know what that is. The Tug Test is an assessment where you sit up from a chair, walk around a cone, and then sit back down, and we're going to time it. So it took him 15.2 seconds, and we're going to look to see if that improves over the course of training him. Hopefully, he gets faster and faster and faster at it. We had him do the overhead squat. We saw that his knees turn out. He's got a little bit of shoulder rounding and a forward head posture and elevated shoulders. Shocker, he's an old guy. How does he not? So we like the chair to sit assessment. That's the Tug Test. We like the pushing and pulling. Oh, I'm sorry. The chair sit to stand assessment. That's in place of the overhead squat. During the pushing and pulling assessment, we saw the elevated shoulders, and then we like the Tug Test in particular. So our plan with Mike is to continually use the Tug Test with him, check in and ask him how he's feeling. That way I can see how out of breath he is, and ask him to give me a scale of 1 to 10, how he's feeling. Ideally, we want him around like a 5 or a 6 the entire time. Any higher than that, it's probably a little bit too much. We are going to warm him up slowly, and we are going to cool him down slowly as well. So with his stretching, he's going to do about 10 minutes of walking on the treadmill before every session even starts. That way we can really get him eased in, and it's not going to be a shock going straight into the exercise. Same thing on the way out. We are avoiding isometric, so anytime we pick an exercise, we're going to do at the absolute slowest a 4-1-1 tempo, or maybe even a 4-0-1 tempo, depending on how he's feeling. I am not going to have him do any static stretches. I'm going to have him do active stretches for about 1 to 2 sets of 5 to 10 reps with only a 1-second pause. So slow rhythmic stretching. We're going to focus on the upper traps, right? So just nice and gentle and back, and nice and gentle and back. His pectorals, right? His lats. We're going to do a standing TFL, a seated glute stretch, a piriformis chair stretch. So that's going to be basically he'll sit into a chair and he'll give that a hug, and he'll give that like a press. And both of those are going to kind of loosen that up. That'll help with the knees caving out. Cardiovascular wise, I want Mike walking every single day, 3 times a day in 10-minute bouts. We are going to work on his endurance when he's in the gym, but throughout the day, I just want him to get nice and active. Only 10 minutes a day, doesn't have to push himself to the point of pain. So he'll strength train 2 days a week, 3 sets of 10, 4-1-1 tempo, 60 seconds of rest. And then I'm going to do an alternation set here where he does exercise A and then he rests, exercise B and then he rests, and then he'll go back to exercise A. So this is even below a peripheral heart action situation, but I will go upper and then lower with exercise A and B. So it might look something like this. It's not a true superset. Let's say I do like goblet squats, and then we have them do like a standing chest press, right? And then we'll do like a sumo squat, which actually, no, I wouldn't. He's got knees caving out. Let's do a step up into kneeling lat pull down. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pair these up. So we'll do like 3 sets. What did I say? 10 repetitions. Medium tempo. And then I'm going to give them 60 seconds of rest on each of these. But pair exercise A with exercise B. So it's not necessarily a circuit, and he's getting lots and lots of rest before he comes back to the next exercise, but he is going upper to lower. So we're trying to train his cardiovascular system to shift that blood. So he'll do a squat, rest, chest press, rest, squat, rest, chest press, rest, squat, chest press, and then he'll move down to the next pair. And then eventually I want to work him up to circuit training, but that's going to take some time. We're going to start real gentle at first until we get that heart back in shape. And that is how you do it. Yeah, little short one, guys. But how y'all feeling? Any questions?
Nope. Pretty good.
Cool.
A lot of nursing review.
What's that?
A lot of nurse review stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No, it's all hard stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we lost Marjan. So, all right, fellas, I'm gonna let you out of here, and I'll see you for your Friday tomorrow.
All right. See you later.